Oh boy, we're gonna have fun with this one. The Karate Kid for the Nintendo Entertainment System. As you could probably tell, this is a game bearing the dreaded Rainbow of Death. Karate Kid was also one of the first video games to be released by LJN maker of toys, as it formed one-third of the unholy trilogy of LJN launch titles unleashed in November of 1987, the other two games being the Zapper-compatible Gotcha the Sport, and the disappointing masterpiece known as Jaws, which we looked at in a previous review. Supposedly this is based on the first two Karate Kid films, but since it's been a while since I've seen any of those films, I couldn't really say. Although given the track record of LJN's offerings, I have a feeling that some make-believe story was concocted, and this had nothing to do with the movies outside of the name and the inclusion of familiar characters and moments. In any case, Level 1's a series of one-on-one karate matches. This is depicting the tournament of the first movie. From there the game switches to a side-scrolling action platformer type thing, where you move from left to right, kill bad guys, avoid pitfalls, and make it to the end and beat the boss to proceed to the next level. Control is questionable at best. Your face buttons are used for preparing punches and kicks, leaving you to press up to jump. Now this control setup is similar to the NES game Kung Fu, which also had punch and kick buttons with jumping done by pressing up. But while Kung Fu had slick, basic combat with impeccable gameplay, Karate Kid has pretty sloppy controls, especially when it comes to special moves. You see along the way you'll pick up icons, letters, whatever you want to call them, that will not only restore a bit of health, but also load up on the ability to pull off the crane kick and drum punch special abilities. Holding off these moves can be done by pressing the appropriate attack button without pressing any directional button. In my opinion, it should be the other way around, especially since it can get pretty easy to forget that bit of information. Also, your jumping is rather flaky and oftentimes prone to not working the way you want it to work, which makes the platforming in this game much more of a chore than any semblance of challenge. In fact, the majority of the game's so-called challenge comes more from horrendous hit detection, huge knockbacks, and potential double teaming with little chance of recovery. Getting sandwiched between two grunts usually equals instant death, a possibility that's much more certain when a pit's involved or when dealing with the debris of level 3. There is a glitch you can exploit where if you keep two grunts on screen behind you and slowly progress onwards, you'll prevent more from respawning until one of them falls into a hole or off screen. It eliminates the threat of more bad guys popping up at inconvenient times, shall we say, but it does little to improve the broken as shit controls and jumping mechanics, and the pretty bland gameplay overall. On a side note, Karate Kid does feature two-player alternating play as well as a one-on-one duel mode, where player 1 takes control of Daniel-san and player 2 takes control of Chosen, the game's villain and only major boss. Whoever wins the match, and then the title screen pops up. No ceremony, that's it. That's all, not much else to it than that. It's pretty lame since the matches end almost the instant they begin, and it almost makes the battles in Urban Champion seem intense in comparison. Almost. There's not much to look at in Karate Kid, as there's only a few characters in the game and half of them are just recolors and redresses of the same basic karate sprite set. It feels pretty lazy and the sprites themselves seem to have a handful of animation frames to work with, because they animate rather stiffly. Level layout and visuals look okay, nothing too eye-dropping or anything, but it's no worse than other games I've seen on the NES. The mini games where you're catching the flies or chopping ice blocks, they look okay, but not much more than that. It looks pretty average. The soundtrack's pretty lame too. Each level does have its own tune, but it's nothing special. Just a few generic 8-bit tunes that don't leave much of an impression. Sound effects are just there. Not much else I can add to that. Overall, this game's not that good. With only 4 levels, Karate Kid's a relatively short game, but is compounded by relentless computer AI, fidgety controls, and frustrating gameplay, which ultimately makes it feel much longer than it really is. While I can appreciate the idea of a game that expands on the base gameplay offered by Kung Fu, the execution in Karate Kid's not quite as good as Kung Fu, and it only makes me wish I was playing Kung Fu instead of Karate Kid. It's a pretty cheap cartridge and fairly common to find, but quite frankly, there are cheap and easy to find NES games that offer much more than this game does. Like Kung Fu! If you need your Karate Kid fix, just stick with the movies, don't bother with the game.